Hello and welcome. It's Athena Pangikas-Miller here, and today I am taking a moment while my class is working on a writing diagnostic to sneak away and complete this video that explains why and how students commit acts of accidental plagiarism. I'm going to be just looking at one little portion of plagiarism. Specifically, I'm going to look at the way students paraphrase and summarize. We all know, of course, that if you buy an essay, have somebody else write your essay, if you steal somebody else's essay, if you cut and paste information from Wikipedia or wherever you find it on the web, of course that's plagiarism. But many students do not know that the way they the way that they paraphrase their source information and even summarize their source information oftentimes leads them right into this trap of plagiarism, because they just don't really understand how to do this correctly. And in fact, I just gave a quiz in my English 15 class that covered plagiarism, and nearly everybody missed the question where I asked them to identify if the paraphrases I included were acceptable or not. So that's what I want to talk about today. If you're in my class, hopefully this will be a benefit for you. If you're not in my class and you're just a student who has been accused of plagiarizing and you don't know why, maybe this video will help you to understand the problem a little bit better. So let's get started. So first we need to understand what a paraphrase is. We're also going to talk later on about summaries. A paraphrase is when you take somebody else's words and you state them, in your own way. The unique thing about paraphrases is that whatever portion of source material you begin with, however large it is, your paraphrase is generally going to be approximately the same size. So it's going to be just about as long. So if you take, let's say, 3 lines from a source, you're probably going to have 3 lines of paraphrase. The reason for this is when you paraphrase, your goal is to capture every detail. You want to maintain all of the original ideas. You don't want to lose anything, so therefore you need roughly the same number of words. Whereas with summarizing, you're just giving main ideas so you can really condense things down. Something that some students don't know, in fact, I've seen many students over the years who don't understand this, even if you put source information in your own words, you still have to cite it. The reason behind this is because the information or the ideas behind that information do not belong to you. They belong to the source's author. So even though, yes, they're your words now, the idea is not your brainchild. Therefore, you need to attribute it back to the author using a parenthetical citation or some type of signal phrase to indicate, where the idea came from, and also your works cited, or if you're in APA, your references list. Another thing students don't realize, sometimes when they're working on their paraphrases, they still keep small words or phrases because maybe they just can't think of another way to say something, or maybe they really like the way that it sounds. It's okay to do that. However, if you're going to maintain any of the original wording, you do need to place it in quotation marks to indicate that this was the source's wording, not your own idea, not your own expression of the idea. We're going to look at some examples that articulate this better. So let's go on. We're going to address acceptable versus unacceptable paraphrases. Here's what leads most students into an issue. A lot of students will, let's say they're paraphrasing a sentence. They'll look at the sentence and they'll say, okay, how can I find synonyms to plug in to the spots in the sentence so that the sentence is technically new and in my own words? So for example, if a sentence, if you're looking for a noun, you just figure, okay, what's a synonym for this noun? What's a synonym for this verb? What's a synonym for this adjective or this adverb or any part of speech in the sentence? And they literally plug in all of these words that mean the same thing but are technically not the original words that the source used. And they think that's cool because it's different. Well, unfortunately, what's happening here is you're still plagiarizing the sentence. The flow of the sentence, the expression of ideas in the sentence structure are plagiarized from the source author. You can't do that. You can't play Mad Libs. This is kind of the way I like to think of it. You can't play Mad Libs with your sentences and have that be considered acceptable. This one issue here is why I believe, and what I've seen in my own, time with all of my students, this is the one reason that students, wind up plagiarizing and they don't understand why, because they think it's okay just to swap out those words and that everything's fine. It's not. So let's look at some examples. For all of the examples I'm going to share with you, I am using a review by Roger Ebert on Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Let me read this to you, and then we're going to go through a couple of examples to see what it is that you should know about plagiarism and how it happens and how to fix it. Here we go. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is a red-blooded adventure movie, dripping with atmosphere, filled with the gruesome and the sublime, and surprisingly faithful to the novel. A lot of things could have gone wrong, and none of them have. Chris Columbus's movie is an enchanting classic that does full justice to a story that was a daunting challenge. The novel by J.K. Rowling was muscular and vivid, and the danger was that the movie would make things too cute and cuddly. It doesn't. Like an Indiana Jones for younger viewers, it tells a rip-roaring tale of supernatural adventure where colorful and eccentric characters alternate with scary stuff like a three-headed dog, a pit of tendrils known as the Devil's Snare, and a two-faced immortal who drinks unicorn blood. Scary, yes, but not too scary, just scary enough. Okay, so now that we have read our review that we're going to be using for this paraphrasing exercise, I'm going to start with unacceptable paraphrase number 1. You can see it's right here. So here's what the student wrote. This is what I wrote to kind of imitate what students tend to do. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is a red-blooded thriller oozing with atmosphere, full of gore and glory and pretty true to the novel. So what's wrong with that? Well, as you can see, I highlighted some portions in red, and I included the source, or this little portion of the source up here, just so that it was easy to follow along with. Number 1, I kept the original sentence structure and the progression of ideas. So exactly as Ebert wrote this, I expressed the ideas. Then, in order to make it my own, I just switched a few things around. Number 1, I used this word red-blooded thriller. That's it, or words, red-blooded thriller. He used the term red-blooded adventure movie. So I just subbed out adventure movie with the word thriller. And you might think, well, isn't that acceptable? It's not. It's not acceptable because, again, we're still borrowing the way the ideas were expressed. We're still using the sentences structure, and we're still using a lot of these key phrases. Like red-blooded is not something that people would say commonly, so it's kind of unique to Ebert's voice. And for us to say it without, putting it in quotation marks is just not okay. If I wanted to leave this as is, I would have to put around red-blooded quotation marks to indicate that's the way that Ebert referred to the movie. Another thing I did here was say oozing with atmosphere. Well, technically it said dripping with atmosphere, so what did I do? Well, I took that phrase and I found a synonym. Instead of dripping, I said oozing. It's still just way too close to the original. All I did was look at how this was written and find areas where I could insert my own words. I left some of them the same, and I just basically plug and played everything. You can't do that. So what I did to fix it is I just rewrote it, and this might take some practice, students, if you're not comfortable with it, but this is what you have to do. Here's my rewrite. Roger Ebert hails Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone as a red-blooded thrill ride that delightfully follows the novel's trajectory, rife with the marvelous and the macabre. Totally different. I didn't present ideas in the same format. I used my own unique sentence structures. These were my words. In fact, the only words that I used that were Ebert's were red-blooded, and I cited him and I gave him credit by putting that in quotation marks. So it would be apparent to any reader that he said that, not me. That's cool. 2 thumbs up. We don't want to do what happened up here, which is just keeping the sentence structure as is and dropping things in. You really have to think about what did the sentence say and how can I express that in a way that is unique entirely to me and my writer's voice. Another example, our second example of an unacceptable paraphrase, we have Ebert remarks that Rowling's novel was brawny and brilliant, and while the fear was that director Chris Columbus would make things too cute and too cuddly and cute, he doesn't. All right. Well, so if we go back up here and look at the source, this is quite similar. So stuff in red, this is, the most egregious things that are going on in my paraphrase. Brawny and brilliant. Okay. Basically, I took muscular and vivid, and I found another way to say that. But again, I'm plagiarizing the sentence structure. I'm taking the spirit and intent, and I'm just subbing in words that mean the same thing. I didn't have to think about how to construct this sentence. I just took what was there and I changed pieces of it. So if you're paraphrasing and you're looking at that sentence and you're just figuring out how you can rewrite bits of it by swapping out words to make it your own, you're not really understanding what it means to paraphrase. You need to read something, internalize it, and then spit it back out in a way, Basically, you would want to stare at your sentence that you're trying to paraphrase for a while, really internalize it, figure out what it means, and then take it away from you. Don't even look at it, and then try to say in your own words what it is that you just read. That's a practice you should be getting into to avoid doing this. The other thing, I mean, he says here, would make things too cute and cuddly. It doesn't. I wrote that director Chris Columbus would make things too cuddly and cute. He doesn't. I switched the order of the words. I took it from the movie being cute and cuddly to the director's, rendition of it. I mean, yeah, I switched it. It's not the same, but it's not okay. It's way too close. And you can see that. That's very plain now that I have it in front of you. So here's how I corrected it and made an acceptable paraphrase. Ebert remarks that he feared director Chris Columbus's adaptation would lessen the intensity of the novel's prowess, but the movie doesn't disappoint, remaining true to the novel's original intentions. That means the same thing as what we just read in the review. However, I said it in my own unique voice. It's entirely, I internalized what was there and I spit it out using my own words and the way that I, designed my sentences. That's what you guys need to be doing as well. Let's look at summaries. So summaries are like paraphrases, except that rather than trying to maintain all of the details, you are summarizing them. You are giving an overview of what's there. So it's the main idea. Summaries can be all different lengths, but they're always going to be shorter than the text that they refer back to because they're condensed. Similarly to paraphrases, you have to use your own words and sentence structure. I find a lot with summary students, maybe not so much sentence structure because you are trying to condense ideas, but they will still borrow key phrases and terms, which is a practice you want to get away from. So here's an example of an unacceptable summary. Because I'm summarizing the entire review, I didn't want to put that back here, so you're going to have to just try to remember back a few slides ago when I shared that review with you, but I've highlighted in red the areas that are problematic. Roger Ebert notes that the film is an adventure movie with lots of atmosphere and that it does full justice to Rowling's challenging novel. Colorful and eccentric characters alternate with scenes that are scary, but not too scary. So what's wrong with this? Overall, I'm condensing the idea, so yes, that part is uniquely my own, but all of this stuff in red right here, these are all exact or nearly exact phrases that were used in his review, and I did not attribute any of that to him. Yes, I said his name, but if he wrote these words, then I needed to put them in quotation marks. Having done that would have been fine, but I didn't do that, so this is now plagiarism. So here's how I corrected this. Again, I had to be smart. I had to identify any places where I was just too close to the original wording, and I had to find ways to make it my own. In Roger Ebert's opinion, the film is a faithful rendition of the first Harry Potter novel, a rousing adventure story in the tradition of the Indiana Jones films. It offers a not overly frightening experience along with Rowling's colorful and eccentric characters. And here again, you can see, well, I decided I really wanted to keep colorful and eccentric characters as he stated it, so I did the smart thing, and I placed that in quotation marks. Please note that if you are going to use some of the original wording from your source, you want to do so sparingly. I wouldn't, let's say I was going to try to salvage my unacceptable summary. I don't feel like it would be a wise idea to just take all of this stuff in red and slap quotes around it, because then, your writing is really getting lost in just quoting somebody else's. You want to use quotes sparingly, which is a topic I can discuss at another time. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Take care.